How do you think the American Revolutionary War ended? Do you think it ended in a big battle or a treaty between Britain or America, perhaps? What if I told you that it was none of those? How the American Revolutionary War really ended was in one of the biggest pranks in all of the entire world's history. Now, if you don't believe me, that's pretty understandable. But if you watch this whole entire video, you'll slowly start to understand that I am telling the truth. Now, you might be asking, how do I know all this information? Well, a couple months ago, I went into my grandpa's attic to clean it out, and I found a diary from one of the colonists fighting in the American Revolutionary War named Ben Hennison. Ben Hennison had wrote down all the details about what happened at the end of the American Revolutionary War and how it all happened, where it all happened, when it all happened. So that's basically what I based my whole script upon. Now let's just dive right in. On August 20th, 1783, a soldier by the name of Garrett Goulson got a letter from his wife announcing that he would be a new father. He was very excited by this news, of course. He told everyone in the camp, and everyone was understandably very excited for him because he was a very well-respected soldier amongst all of the colonists. When he made his way to General George Washington, Washington was understandably also very excited for him, and that night he announced that all of the soldiers would be heading to a lake to celebrate Garrett's new fatherhood. He announced they would be doing wooden frisbee, they would be swimming, and they would be having steak and boiled eggs. And, of course, green drinks. Everyone roared in applause and screamed at the top of their lungs. They never had such an exciting moment as this in their life before. Little did they know, at the same time, at the British camp, they were camping, a couple miles away from the American colonists plotting their next attack. And one of their soldiers, one of their eldest soldiers, may I mention, had just earned his Lifetime Achievement Award, and everyone was extremely happy for him. So, they also decided to go to the same lake. Now, you may be wondering, what lake is this? Well, this lake is best known today as Breezy Acres in Douglas, Mass. You can visit there today, and they still have the water slides, which I'll talk about later. And, yes, we'll get back to that at the very end. We'll circle around to it. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Okay, so that weekend, the American colonists headed down to the lake. They were all cheering and singing their workman songs and having such a grand time. They set up their camp, and they started playing their wooden frisbee, and they started cooking their boiled eggs, and their steak, and their green drinks. But then, they saw someone in the distance. The British. The redcoats were coming. Quickly, they all grabbed their weapons and got in their position. But George, he ordered them to drop their weapons and to not fire. He approached the British soldier with caution, but he yelled out, "We come in peace!" And they stopped. "Please bring me your general!" He shouted back at them. "Hold your fire, please!" he said again. Their general stepped out. "What do you want?" he said. "I want to know why you're here." "Well, one of our eldest soldiers has his Lifetime Achievement Award." "Oh, how nice. Can we negotiate about this? Just peacefully, like real men?" And they negotiated. They negotiated for about 10 minutes, it was reported. And they reached an agreement to stay on opposite sides of the lake the whole time, their whole stay, and to not interfere or fight with each other at all, and just be at peace for once. After all, they were pretty tired of fighting and just wanted a break, just some time with the boys, you know? So, they went to opposite sides of the lake, and they continued their festivities. Little did Britain know that the colonists were plotting something behind Britain's back. George called everyone over that night and said, "Thank you all for coming. Thank you all so much. I love you all." And he gathered everyone in very close and explained his secret plan to all of the colonists. They all snickered and their mouths contorted into devilish grins. They were ready. They were ready to attack. That night at precisely 2 a.m., they went over to the British side of the lake, and they very swiftly and carefully snuck over to all their tents. All of them were sound asleep, and none of them were awake, which was a W for the American colonists. After they checked that all of them were asleep, they started building water slides out of cement and wood. They built exactly 7 water slides, for there were 7,000 British soldiers, and they decided to split up all the American colonists so they could get into groups, so they could get, each group could get 1,000 soldiers and put them down the slides. They quickly and swiftly, and very quietly too, picked up their mattresses, picked up the British mattresses and cots, and slid them one by one down all the slides. And none of them awoke. One of them might have stirred just a little bit, but none of them ever awoke. Slowly, soldiers started to fill the lake. As morning rolled by, the American colonists stood by the lake, looking at their work proudly. They couldn't believe what they had done. Slowly, one by one, the British soldiers started to wake up. Shock set into their faces. They cried for help. They fell off their mattresses. They were outraged, and they tried to paddle their way to shore, but their hands weren't powerful enough. Some tried to swim, but no one knew how to swim, and they just ended up drowning. Some were so shocked they fell off their mattresses. The mattresses flipped over, and they drowned. Some just sat there for days and tried to drink the lake water, but eventually died from bad lake water. And some just sat there and starved, and they all died in the end. And all the American colonists, they watched slowly as all of them started to die and drown and starve to death. They were happy. They finally had a victory. They were independent from the United Kingdom, and they were free. They were finally free from their tyranny. They were happy for once in their life. They all celebrated, threw their hats in the air. They shot their guns into the air too. Garrett was overjoyed. His wife, he ordered a man and a horse to fetch his wife and his newborn child, which he missed the birth of, but it was okay, just to see this victory. His wife and newborn child came over, and they celebrated with them. They ate boiled eggs and steak all day, and they cried tears of joy. They looked into the sky and prayed to the gods that this feeling would last forever. They had won. They had won the war. The American Revolution was over, and the American colonists had won. The British were gone. They had all died. They're free now. So, yeah, that's how the American Revolutionary War ended. You can still go today and go go on the water slides that the British built, that the American colonists built. And some people still say that to this day, you can see the ghosts of British soldiers out on the water on their mattresses, crying for help, absolutely outraged, and trying to paddle their way to shore.